Hey everybody, I'm Benjamin, aka The Terrible Australian of Supermastery.com, and welcome to my video review of the fact-based drama, The Finest Hours. So let's get right into it. Now, I heard a lot of good buzz about The Finest Hours mainly because I thought, when I sort of first heard about it, I thought, okay, it's got a pretty solid director helming it with Australian director Craig Gillespie, who made Lars and the Real Girl, the remake of Fright Night, and I really enjoyed those films a lot, so I thought, okay, this will definitely be interesting because, this is a big, full-on, sort of big-budget film that's produced by Disney, so it definitely is going to be a film that's more along the lines of what, the kind of true story films that Disney has produced in the past, like Remember the Titans, Miracle, and, all the other ones out there. And it also has a really strong cast as well, because you got Chris Pine, Casey Affleck, Ben Foster, Holliday Granger, John Orritt, Eric Bana, and so in that way it kind of thought, okay, it piqued my interest, and also it's a film about a true story I'd never honestly even heard about, and I thought, okay, I'll give this film a shot. And having seen the film now, I will say I don't think it's as good as it could have been, but I thought it was pretty solid. Like it's not a particularly amazing film by any means. And even though it's a really fascinating story that the film is based on, I kind of feel like it's kind of was missing something. And I feel like it was, even though it had all the ingredients there, like it's well directed, strong performances by the cast, and and it's quite thrilling at times. But it kind of feels like it's just doesn't really have that much in terms of story or character. To me, sort of the more interesting stuff about the film is when we're sort of, like, since it sort of goes back and forth between this rescue team trying to help this, the Coast Guard, particularly the head one played by Chris Pine, going on its sort of this very dangerous mission to help this, this crew of the ship, of this ship who are stuck out in the ocean, and it's like fun, and it's in a massive storm, and the ship could sink at any minute. To me, the stuff with the crew on the boat was definitely the more interesting stuff to me, and particularly with sort of Casey Affleck as kind of being sort of the reluctant leader of the group, and he trying to help all his fellow crewmen sort of survive the storm and the sinking of the boat before, until help arrives. And to me, that was kind of the more interesting aspect of the film. But when we sort of go back and forth, sort of what's going on in the town, on the coastal town that's going nearby with Chris Pine's character, it's kind of the least interesting stuff, even though there are some good, not to say that it's bad or anything, like it is still engaging, but it's not quite as compelling and thrilling as the stuff on the ship. So, and also it kind of lacks a bit of character development as well, with, Chris Pine's character kind of, like, even though he does have an arc during the course of this film, we kind of, to me, the film just didn't really explore his character enough, and also sort of the supporting cast, like Ben Foster and Eric Bana, kind of, sort of, they're even though they do the best with their roles that they're given and do solid work, but then there's not really much there in terms of character or whatnot, and so it's really kind of Chris Pine and Casey Affleck's characters who kind of have that sort of the more interesting characters of the two. And even though they don't have, there's not really much there, but they make the most, like everyone else in the film, they make the most of what they work with. So, and also at times though, the film does get a bit repetitive at times, particularly when it's sort of Chris Pine and his crew on their mission to go straight to the boat, and sort of like how they get there, and sort of the trials that they face just to get to the boat. It kind of gets a bit repetitive at times too. But at other times it's really thrilling, like seeing how this whole sort of event sort of played out, and how it sort of happened. And I'm not sure exactly how close to the true story that this film actually is. I assume, like a lot of true stories, some aspects they made up, of course, to sort of work for dramatic purposes and whatnot. So, but to me, in a lot of ways, the film was engaging when it came to the story. Even though I kind of wish the script, which funnily enough was written by the same writers behind The Fighter a couple of years back, I kind of wish there was a bit more to it though. and also some of this, and visually the film, even though it's mostly set at night, but it just was a bit too dark and murky at times, and it didn't really help that since it's out on the ocean, there's a lot of sort of CGI and whatnot. Like, the CGI is pretty solid, but there was kind of a lot of it, so it kind of, at times, it did take me out of the film a bit. But to me, but like I said, it's still a solid film. It's compelling, and it's definitely has you thrilled at times as well. And, but it's definitely a film that you kind of don't really need to see again after you watch it. It's definitely kind of a one and done type of deal. But I'd say it's worth a watch for sure. But for me, actually, one of the best things about this film, and one that I've got to give a lot of praise to, and to me this is one of the best aspects of the film, was actually the female lead of the film, Holiday Granger. Her character, who's kind of the fiancée of Chris Pine's character. Like, her character could easily have been a very sort of stock kind of supportive girlfriend kind of role, but the way her character is written in this film is she is tough as nails. She's very forceful, very strong-willed, and she's definitely feels like a character, like a very, even though the film is set in the 50s, she feels like a very modern-day character in the way how she thinks, she acts, and how she doesn't let anyone sort of, like, push her down and all that. She's a very strong-willed character, and she stands up for herself. And to me, her performance was great, and her character was definitely, of all the characters in the film, was the most interesting one to me. And to me, the film was at its strongest. Like, other when we're at the scenes with the ship, when it came back to sort of being at the coastal town, it's just the scenes with Holiday Granger are definitely some of the highlights of the film. And she just makes a character that could have easily, on paper, just be your standard girlfriend character, but she brings a lot of her, and I'd say the writers as well, and director Craig Gillespie, brings so much to that character that make her so interesting and so compelling. And I think she's great. And also it felt like she just stepped out of a film from the 1950s. She has this look about her that if she went back in time to the 50s, she just would have fit in perfectly. She is so good. Holiday Granger is fantastic in this film, and definitely one of the best aspects of the film. So overall, The Finest Hours, not an amazing film by any means, but it's still a solid, entertaining, and compelling film that does its job. And I'd say it's worth a watch. Maybe on more of a Sunday afternoon type of viewing, rather than, say, I will say, I guess you could go see it in the cinema, because it's definitely a film to definitely check out in the cinema, because director Craig Gillespie sort of make sure you have to see this film in the cinema. So I'd say it is worth checking out at the cinema, but at the same time, if you don't manage to see it, it will work perfectly fine at home on DVD or Blu-ray or streaming. So if I have to give The Finest Hours a rating, I give it 3 stars. So yep, that's the end of my review of The Finest Hours. I hope you guys all enjoyed it, and I'll see you all later. See you, everyone.